The week of family Christmas tree. If you've been here for any amount of time, you probably know by now I am a pretty big fan of movies, and I use them a lot in preaching and in preparation just because I see so many parallels between movies that I've seen or watched and different things that I read in the scriptures, and I'm always trying to find ways to connect with people and show them the story of Jesus in different ways. And so that was one of the things I was doing this week, that sometimes I'll have this thought about a movie and how it intersects with a passage of Scripture, but perhaps I haven't seen the movie in a while, or I want to make sure I get the details right or whatnot. So like part of my sermon prep process, which I really like this, will be watching the movie. And so I went home from work on Wednesday, and I told the kids and Megan, I said, hey, I've got to watch a movie for work tonight, so we're just going to do it all together. And the kids could not figure out why we were watching Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer as part of my sermon. But I said, listen, it's in the Bible. You didn't know it was in the Bible. And the kids were like, it's not in the Bible. I said, it is in the Bible. I said, I've got 2 degrees in this and you don't, so it's not in the Bible, though. It's not. But I did see what I was looking for in there, because I was trying to think, did I remember this movie correctly? And I did. Have you all, I'm talking about the original one, like 50, 60, 70 years ago, Rudolph. It was always on TV really late at night during December whenever I was growing up. It is sad. Have y'all seen it lately? It's how they treat that poor reindeer. I mean, if someone treated your kid like that, you would be going to jail. Right? Like, they're awful. Nobody wanted a red-nosed reindeer. And I was thinking, why is that such a big deal? And then, like, you get introduced to the other little guy, Hermie, the elf. And all that dude wants is to be a dentist. And they're, but no, you have to make toys. So he felt unwanted. Rudolph felt unwanted. Then they end up at the Island of Misfit Toys with a jack-in-the-box named Charlie, and a boat with square wheels, and a boat that can't float, and a train with square wheels. And we find out through that little silly song that this is a whole island full of misfits, people that know toys that nobody wanted. And for me, I thought, man, I know what that feels like. You know what that feels like? You ever been there when you've kind of got these thoughts about yourself, like maybe you feel like a train with square wheels, and you're like, I know what that feels like to not be wanted. I know what that feels like for people to look at me and say, man, there's something wrong with you. I don't really want anything to do with you. Whatever it is, like you're not good enough, you're not worthy enough. Like, you ever felt that before, like you just were unwanted? Like, I felt that. I went out for the 7th grade basketball team, and I was so excited for this, to finally be playing basketball in middle school. Like, we were so excited. Me and my buddy Cameron actually went the night that they posted the names on the window at the school. You'll ever have that happen? You'd have tryouts, and then later in the evening they would put the thing on the window so you could go and see. So we convinced my mom to drive us. It's like 9 o'clock at night on a school night, because we're certain our names are on that list. We show up at Andrew Jackson Middle School, we're searching the list, and our names are nowhere to be found. And I remember that feeling of like unwantedness, like, sorry, you're just not good enough. And like, when that happens to you young in life, it has a tendency to stick with you, doesn't it? Like, maybe there were people in your life that were supposed to care for you. Maybe it was a mom or a dad, and they took off on you. They didn't want to be with you anymore, and so they pushed you away and they ran off. Or maybe it was a relationship that you were in that the other person told you that the relationship would be moving forward without you. Maybe it was a job you interview and they chose the other person. Like, you ever felt unwanted? And then when you feel unwanted, you start trying to retrace, like, why is it that they don't want me? Why is it that they didn't want to be part of my life? Why is it that they did push me away? What's so wrong with me? Am I the only one, or you guys just, woo? Service has started, folks. And I know, like, if that's been part of your personal journey, maybe somebody left you in a relationship, or maybe mom and dad or somebody walked out on you when you were little, like, you feel that a lot this time of year. You feel those feelings of unwantedness. Or if something happened to you like 10, 20, 30 years ago, and then something new happens, like you didn't get invited to the dinner or whatever it is, you start feeling those feelings of unwantedness again. You start going, well, what is it really that's wrong with me? Well, if that's you, if you're someone like me that can identify with those feelings of being unwanted and feeling like there's always something wrong with you, today's for you. I want to tell you about a lady named Ruth. Ruth takes up a little tiny chunk, probably 4 or 5 pages in the Old Testament. And I want to tell you her whole story. We're going to cover 4 chapters as fast as we possibly can today. Because I think that if you're one of those people that you know what it feels like to be unwanted or feel like there's something wrong with you, that everyone that's ever in relationships with you always wants to leave, this is for you. See, Ruth, her story starts with the story of a man named Elimelech and his wife, Naomi. You can follow along on the screen, or you can hit the QR code in the seat back if you want to follow along. There's going to be a lot of scripture and a lot of twists and turns, so you may want to follow along, take notes. We read this, Ruth chapter 1, verse 1. In the days when the judges ruled in Israel, a severe famine came upon the land, so a man from Bethlehem in Judah left his home and went to live in the country of Moab, taking his wife and 2 sons with him. This man's name was Elimelech, and his wife was Naomi. Their 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem in the land of Judah. And when they reached Moab, they settled there. Again, if you're a note taker, or if you have a physical Bible and you're an underliner, I want you to underline Ephrathites from Bethlehem. That's going to be really important in the future. Verse 3 says this, Then Elimelech died, and Naomi was left with her 2 sons. So Elimelech, being the head of the household, decides because of a famine in Bethlehem, in the area of Judah, that he's going to take his family and move to Moab, where they're told there's food, there's provision. So he's trying to take care of his family. So he's going to leave where they're from in Bethlehem, and they're going to take off and go to Moab. But while the family was there, Elimelech dies. It doesn't tell us how he dies. We just find out that he dies. And then this is what happened. The 2 sons married Moabite women, one named Orpah and the other a woman named Ruth. But about 10 years later, both Mahlon and Chilion, Naomi and Elimelech's 2 sons, were both killed. This left Naomi alone with her 2 daughter-in-laws, Ruth and Orpah. Now, here's the setting. Naomi goes to Moab with a full family. She has a husband, she has 2 sons, they marry, they have wives, everything is going great. And then she is left with nothing. She has these 2 Moabite, so these are Gentiles, these are not Israelite women. She's left with these 2 daughter-in-laws. Now, Naomi gets word that things have gotten better back in Bethlehem. The famine is now over, so it's time to return home. So her and the 2 daughter-in-laws set out for Bethlehem and decide that this is their time to head home. On the way there, Naomi tells the 2 Moabite women that they should return home to Moab because they'll be able to be better taken care of there. Because when they get to Bethlehem, there is nothing waiting for them. There is very little prospect whatsoever that they are going to be well taken care of. Because to be a single or a widowed woman at this point in history meant that you were solely reliant upon other people. And if you didn't have a husband or some family to take care of you, you were going to be destitute. You could starve. You would be out on the streets. It was a very precarious situation to be in. So she tells her 2 daughter-in-laws, it's going to be better for you all to go back to your homeland where you can find new husbands, where your families can take care of you. Now, Orpah takes her up on the offer, and she's like, all right, that's cool. I'm going back home to Moab. But Ruth in chapter 1 has this beautiful speech where she tells Naomi, she goes, wherever you go, I'll go. Wherever you stay, I'll stay. Your God will be my God. I'm going with you. So for some reason, Ruth has this connection to her mother-in-law that's so strong that says, listen, even if it means that we're going to suffer, even if it means that we're going to struggle, I'm going with you. I am attaching myself to you. And so the 2 ladies head to Bethlehem. Upon arrival, they're greeted, and Naomi essentially just tells the people of the town how bitter she is because she's lost her husband, she's lost her sons, and she has nothing. Now, it's at this time that they get back that these 2 women have to start figuring out how in the world are they going to be properly taken care of in this society. Naomi's probably not able to go get a job. They don't have anyone that is ready to take care of them. How are they going to solve this problem of just survival? How in the world are they going to make it day to day? Where are they going to get something to eat? Who's going to give them shelter? And all these things are coming up. And so Ruth decides to step forward, and she knows how she's going to help take care of the family initially. And this is what happens in Ruth chapter 2, beginning in verse 3. It says, "So Ruth went out to gather grain behind the harvesters. And as it happened, she found herself working in a field that belonged to Boaz, the relative of her father-in-law, Elimelech." Now, here's what happened. Ruth did not get a job. In fact, Israel had these rules, regulations set up that helped provide and take care of the poor, the destitute among them. In fact, in Leviticus chapter 23, we read this. It says, "When you harvest the crops of your land, do not harvest the grain along the edges of your fields, and do not pick up what the harvesters drop. Leave it for the poor and the foreigners living among you. I am the Lord your God." So when God created the culture and the society of Israel and their nation, he had already worked into the fray how the poor and the destitute would be taken care of. People that owned fields, they would not go all the way to the edges of the fields. They would leave the edges for the poor and the destitute. And then as they went through harvesting the grain, whatever fell to the ground, the workers knew not to touch, that there would be widows and orphans, and the poor of the society would come and follow behind them and just grab whatever they possibly could. So this is Ruth's plan. She's going to go and work in these fields, but the problem is it's incredibly dangerous to be a woman by yourself out just doing this, because we get the sense from some of the other things that happen in this context that these women would be abused and harassed by the men that are working. It's a very dangerous situation, and really not a long-term way if her and Naomi are ever going to have their problems solved. So while Ruth is gathering barley and grain in the field of this guy named Boaz, he actually shows up. He actually shows up. When he shows up, he looks out over his field, and someone catches his eye. There's someone out there that he doesn't recognize. So he calls a servant over. He goes, "Hey, I want to know who that lady is. Like, look, this is like Old Testament, like he's checking her out. Like she catches his eye. Like maybe it's her looks, maybe it's how hard she's working, whatever it is." He's like, "I want to know who that is." They say, "Oh, that's Ruth. She came home from Moab with Naomi. She's been helping take care of her." And because of this, Boaz decides to show her unbelievable kindness. So he calls Ruth over. He says, "Listen, first off, he feeds her lunch. Gives her lunch," which that's not what the other poor and destitute that were just gathering up the scraps, they didn't get lunch. It wasn't part of the deal. He even let her take her leftovers home. He said that she could drink from the water that the regular workers, the paid workers, could have access to. He also said that he'd keep all them creepy dudes away from her. Like, "I'm going to take care of you in every possible way, Ruth. I want you, don't go to other people's places to glean barley and wheat. Only come to my fields, and I am going to take care of you. I am going to protect you." He says, "Listen, I've got you," which is beautiful. But in Ruth's mind, here's what she's thinking. It tells us this in Ruth 2:10. Ruth fell at his feet and thanked him warmly. She says, "What have I done to deserve such kindness? I am only a foreigner." She wasn't living among her people. She was an outsider. She was like living on the outside of society. And for her, she goes, "I don't know why you're being so good to me. Why are you being so kind to me? Because there's something wrong with me. I'm a foreigner." And that was a big deal in this society. Like, what about you? What is that thing that you are always holding up to God or to other people as like, this is what's wrong with me? And this is why I can't believe that you want anything to do with me because of this. You have this thing in your past, something that you've done, a person that you were, and you keep going, like this is me. I think this all the time. God, are you certain that you have the right person? Like I'm always asking God, are you sure you have the right person? That like you've called me to pastor this church and to be Megan's husband and Landon and Olivia's father. Are you sure that you didn't mix me up? Like maybe our paperwork got switched in your office? Like How are you sure that you got the right person? Because look at everything that's wrong with me. Look at all the stuff that I have done. I ask that, I think that all the time, and I'll hold up these things and I'll go, see, God, look what I've done. Look how I messed it up again. I did this, did that. Like, what is that for you? Like, you hold up to people and you go, yeah, because I'm divorced, right? Is that what it is? Or I'm an addict. Or like fill in the blank. What is it that you keep holding up? You go, I can't believe that you would want anything to do with me because of this. This is right where Ruth is at. She is blown away by Boaz's kindness. The text goes on and tells us that she works the rest of the day. She gleans enough food for about a week. She goes home. She shows it all to Naomi. Naomi's got some questions. She says this. Where did you gather all this grain from today? Naomi asked. Where did you work? May the Lord bless the one who helped you. So Ruth told her mother-in-law about the man whose field she had worked. She said, that man I worked with today is named Boaz. So we find out that that's whose field she was in. It goes on, Naomi responds, may the Lord bless him. Naomi told her daughter-in-law this. He is showing his kindness to us as well as to our dead husbands. Like his kindness to you has been a blessing, not just to us, but even to his relatives that have gone on and passed. That man is one of our closest relatives, one of our family redeemers. Now, this is a Jewish terminology that is incredibly important if you're going to understand the story of Ruth. In your translation, it may say something like kinsman redeemer or whatnot, but the idea is that there are people that they refer to as the family redeemer. And the family redeemer is simply this. It is the nearest adult male relative who serves as an advocate for any vulnerable and or unfortunate clan member in order to correct any disruption to clan wholeness or well-being, especially through the redemption or restoration of property, persons, or lineage. Here's what happened. When God gave his people the promised land, it was portioned out by different clans and then ultimately by families, and it was meant to stay with those families. But from time to time, families would fall on hard times, and they would have to sell the farming rights of their land to someone else to continue to survive. So that's what has taken place. Most likely, when Elimelech heard about the famine and moved his family, before he left, he probably sold the farming rights of his land to someone else before he left. So what's happened is Naomi is now back, and she has nothing, and she has no way to buy back that land whatsoever. So Naomi and Ruth need a family redeemer. Redeem is to pay a price to get something back. That's the biblical term. Anytime you see the word redeem, it's a price is being paid to get something back that's been lost, stolen, or forfeited. In this case, they need a family redeemer. They need someone that will come and buy this land back for Naomi so the way they can be taken care of. That is their greatest need. Above anything else, they need a redeemer. It's not just food, it's not just shelter, it's not just water. What they need is redeemed. It will solve all of those issues. Now, the other thing that comes along with being the family redeemer is if there is a widow that is linked to the property, that person has the option of also marrying the widow and having children with her, so that way there will be an offspring whose name will now be attached to that property long term. So that this is the way that Israel ensured that there was always someone who would maintain the land that was originally given to them. And so this is what Naomi is hinting at. When she tells Ruth, wow, you ended up in Boaz's field, he's our family redeemer. In essence, he's the one that can fix this whole situation. He's the one that can make us whole. He's the one that can bring healing to our situation. He can fix this. He's the one. But what he has to choose is he has to choose to pay the price to redeem the land and to redeem us. He has to be willing. He has to be able to do so. So Naomi comes up with this plan. All right, Ruth, you've already made nice with Boaz once. Why don't you get yourself good and cleaned up, put on some perfume, make your hair look nice, And I want you to go up to the threshing floor where Boaz will be this evening. There will be a big party because it's harvest time. When you see where he lays down, go and lay down beside him. Now, you go read commentaries on this. People try to make this chapter all sorts of weirdness. All that's happening is there is some sort of marriage proposal that is taking place when Ruth walks up to the threshing floor, finds where Boaz is laying, and she goes and lays down beside him. She goes and lays down beside him, and in their culture, somehow, this is the proposal of marriage. This is the proposal of, will you redeem our family? Here's Boaz's response. Who are you? Now, before we give Boaz a hard time, there's a lot of context and a lot of circumstance. It's probably dark. It is the middle of the night, and we were told that she's supposed to show up after Boaz has done a little bit of partying, okay? So he's not 100% certain who it is. Maybe it's dark, whatever's going on. There's some extenuating circumstances. So she responds, I am your servant Ruth. Now here comes the proposal. Spread your covering or your garment over me, for you are my family redeemer. This is what she's saying. She goes, look, I will know that you are interested in redeeming our family, of paying the price to get back what we have had stolen or sold away. To get that back, if you're willing, will you just throw the corner of your covering over me? That will let me know that you're going to take care of us, that you're going to play the role of redeemer in my family's life. And he responds like this. There we go. He says, the Lord bless you, my daughter. You are showing even more family loyalty now than you did before. He's talking about the family loyalty she's already shown to Naomi, but now what she's trying to do in getting the land redeemed, to get the offspring to continue the family name attached to this land, he goes, this is even more than what you did before. And Boaz feels a little bit of shock as well, because he says, and you haven't gone after the younger men, whether they're rich or poor. Like, he's a little bit shocked that she wanted anything to do with him. Now, don't worry about a thing, he says. I will do what is necessary, for everyone in town knows you're a virtuous woman. So he tells her, he goes, I'm interested in doing this. I will redeem your family. I will pay the price to get back your land, to make you whole. I will pay that price. But then we find out that there's a problem in verse 12. It says, but while it's true that I am one of your family redeemers, there is another man who is more closely related to you than I am. So he goes, there's a problem. There's a pecking order to things. Boaz isn't first in line to redeem this property. It had to be the closest male kin, and that was not him. He was second in line. He was not first. So he tells her, stay here tonight, and in the morning I will talk to him. If he's willing to redeem you, very well. Let him marry you. But if he is not willing, then as surely as the Lord lives, I will redeem you myself. Now lie down here until morning. So he tells her, I'm going to do it. I'll see to it. I'm going to go, and I'm going to go find this other family redeemer who is one step closer to you all than I am, and I will give him this option to redeem the land, to marry you, to keep the land attached to your family. I'll give him the option first, and if he doesn't, then I'll do it. I'm willing to do it, but he has to have first right of refusal. So Ruth chapter 4, beginning in verse 1, tells us this. Boaz did exactly what he said he was going to do. He went to the town gate, which that's where all business of the day was conducted. If you were going to enter into a contract with someone, you're going to make an arrangement, it was going to happen at the town gate. And so he took a seat there. Why did he take a seat there? Because any man of that day is going to pass by the city gates at least once in a day. So he told her, I'm going to see to it that this man gets this offer. So that's what he's going to do. So he sits down, and he's waiting on this man to come through. And it says, just then, the family redeemer he had mentioned came by. So Boaz called out to him, come over here and sit down, friend. I want to talk to you. And so they sat down together. Then Boaz called the leaders from the town and asked them to sit as witness as well. So you would ask the elders of the town to come around and sit, because they have to be witnesses to the proposal and to the agreements and things that are going to take place. And he says this, and Boaz said to the family redeemer, you know Naomi, who came back from Moab. She is selling the land that belonged to our relative Elimelech. I thought I should speak to you about it so that you can redeem it if you wish. I want the land then if you want the land, buy it here in the presence of these witnesses. But if you don't want it, let me know right away, because I am next in line to redeem it after you. And the man replied, all right, I'll redeem it. So he goes, yeah. The land? Oh, I want the land. Absolutely, this is good business. This is more land for me to farm. I can make more profit. I absolutely want the land. Now, if you were Boaz and you're thinking in your head like, man, I'm really hoping he passes on this because I really want to redeem this land. It's a good thing for me, a good thing for Ruth. Like, I really am hoping that he doesn't follow through with this. So that's probably what's going through Boaz's mind. So he goes, oh, one more thing, friend. If you redeem the land, I want you to remember that Ruth, the Moabite, the foreigner, comes along with the property. And so you'll need to marry her and give her an offspring so the land can stay in the family. And then, verse 6, he says, then I can't redeem it. This might endanger my own stuff. Now, this right here, it's a good thing Ruth didn't show up, right, to hear this. This man, when it's just the land, he goes, oh, absolutely, I'm in. Count me in for that. And he goes, oh, but Ruth comes along with it. And he goes, nope, I'm out. I don't want her. I don't want her. She's from Moab. She's a foreigner living among us. I don't want her. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to pay the price for her. No way. Can you imagine if Ruth had been there? I'm going to guess she would have felt like a train with square wheels, or a boat that couldn't float, or like a little middle school boy that didn't make the basketball team. She would have felt like maybe you felt when you got left, when someone abandoned you, when someone said they didn't want you anymore. That's how she would have felt. It would have hurt. He didn't want her. Now, if the story were to stop right there, that would be a dreadful story, right? Like, that would be a terrible story. Hey, do you want the land? Yeah, I want the land. Do you want the lady that comes with it? Don't want her. End of story. But thankfully, there was another Redeemer who was willing to pay the price, who did not care that Ruth was a foreigner, that she had some baggage that came along with her. There was a willing and able Redeemer named Boaz. Because we read this in verse 9. It says, then Boaz said to the elders and to the crowd standing around, you are witnesses of that today I have bought from Naomi the property of Elimelech, Mahlon, and Chilion. And with the land I have acquired Ruth, the Moabite widow from Mahlon, to be my wife. This way she can have a son to carry on the family name of her dead husband and to inherit the family property here in his hometown. You are all witnesses of this today. And so though the first Redeemer was not interested in Ruth, though he rejected her and didn't want anything to do with her, though she was unwanted to him, there was one who did want her. There was one that could look past what might be wrong with her. There was one that, despite what she was holding up, going, hey, look, I'm a foreigner. I know I don't deserve any of this kindness. He says, no, listen, I want you. And this reminds us, this little story right here, though it does carry on the lineage that we know that eventually Boaz and Ruth have a son who has a son, that eventually we see King David come from this very lineage. We see Boaz and Ruth show up in Matthew chapter 1 in the lineage of Jesus of Nazareth because Boaz was not the last Redeemer to come from Bethlehem. See, in Micah chapter 5, verse 2, we read, but you, O Bethlehem Ephrathah, remember those two things I told you to mark down on Ruth chapter 1? They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem. This prophecy says, but you, O Bethlehem of Ephrathah, are only a small village among all the people of Judah, yet a ruler will come whose origins are in the distant past. He will come on my behalf. Boaz was not the final Redeemer to come from Bethlehem. See, there was another Redeemer, Jesus of Nazareth, born in Bethlehem, came to redeem you, to buy you back, to acquire you, so that way you can be part of his family. Though you may feel unwanted by the world, by your own family, by different people in your life, they may have pushed you away and said that they don't want anything to do with you. The other Redeemer from Bethlehem says that you can come and be part of his family, that he will welcome you in, baggage, busted, bruised up, however you come, that you can be part of his family. Doesn't matter what you've done, doesn't matter where you've been, that he has redeemed you and will gladly welcome you into his family. He wants that for each and every one of you. So if you feel like the world has pushed you away, you feel like mom and dad ran out on you, your ex-husband, your ex-wife, your kids don't want anything to do with you, you feel unwanted, there is a Redeemer from Bethlehem that wants you. He wants you to be part of his family. He's already paid the price so that way you can be part of his family.